Electronisounds Audio, the YouTube channel for you.
Hey, what's happening, friends? It's Dean from Electronisounds. Stick around. Today we're going to be checking out the Asrodot dub delay for iOS. You guys know I love the dub. Come on, let me show you what it sounds like. Let's take an overview of the controls and how they work on the Dub Delay app. First off, on the input section here, we can drive the input and get it a little bit hotter and full of, more drive and saturation if we want, or we can leave that all the way down and keep it super clean if we want as well. In the next section, we can adjust the actual course delay time to all sorts of different settings, and we can even nudge that delay time sort of off the grid, and we can do this in real time as well using this fine time control underneath the course time control. Underneath that, we've got the feedback. That's how much the delay is going to sort of feed back and sort of feed into itself and get those longer repeats going. Next up, we've got a filter section where we can filter the audio that's going through here. We can add some resonance to that if we want, and we can even change what type of filter this is, from like a low pass filter to a band pass filter to a band reject filter. Or a high pass filter. So low pass, high pass, band pass, and band reject. 4 kinds of filters built in here. We can even get a little bit of modulation happening on that filter by utilizing the LFO section over here, which has quite a few different modulation shapes in the LFO. And we can adjust the speed of that LFO as well to get it up to those really high, wacky rates, or just like really slow and gentle moving LFO action on some of these knobs. We've got another saturation here where we can continue to further drive the sound and really help it sort of feed back into itself. And we can modulate the amount of this drive as well, again, using these settings on the LFO tab over here. Not tab, but just section. You know what I mean. Next up, we've got another filter. So you could have, let's say, a high pass filter on the left to get rid of some of the low frequency content going into the delay. And you could maybe roll off some of the high frequency content using the second filter, or any combination of those that you choose. Down here at the bottom, we've got 3 XY pads. And these are really the meat and potatoes of the app, because you can assign these to any of the knobs here, and you can control those in real time. If you get really creative, you can even, use 2 hands and control quite a few knobs at the same time. And how you assign the knobs to the XY pads is you're just going to hit, X or Y, and here it's going to bring up a list of all of the available controls. So let's say I want to, make it so when I, push the XY controls around, that the delay changes. Maybe the delay feedback, will raise up here. So you can see now that I'm, moving on the XY pad, we're controlling that feedback knob. And you can get 2 different knobs, on these XY axis. So up to like 6 different combinations, of knobs, not combinations, but 6 different destinations for modulating these knobs here using the XY pads. Super cool. I'm going to explain the setup and the routing here, and then we'll take a listen to what it sounds like. First off, I've got some drums and some percussion coming out of the Poly-Ind Play groove box. Up on top here, I've got kind of a techno arpeggiated bass line coming out of a custom Eurorack system that I put together using a lot of Erica synths modules. Down here on the bottom right, we have an iPad. This is the Dub Delay app, and it's being hosted this time by Beatmaker 3 on the iPad. Over here on the right, we've got an audio interface that's attached to the iPad. I'm using the Novation Audio Hub 2x4, but this could be any audio interface that you've got connected to your iPad. And then lastly, over here on the right, I've got the 1010 Music Blue Box recorder and mixer, where I'm mixing the audio from the Play in with the audio from the Eurorack going through the iPad. So we're mixing these two signals together and recording the final result inside of the Blue Box. Now, let's see here. The main clock in this example is coming out of the Erica Synths Black Sequencer. I've got this connected via MIDI out. It comes with a little dongle, and I've got that just connected to a standard MIDI cable. That's going into a MIDI Solutions Quadra through, which is allowing me to duplicate that MIDI out signal to up to 4 different outputs, okay? I've got one of those MIDI outputs going into the MIDI input of the Poly-Ind Play. So when I press play over here on the Black Sequencer, it starts the Play running with its own internal sequencer. And I've got the other MIDI output going to an iRig MIDI 2, which is plugged into our audio interface. And that is allowing me to get 5-pin MIDI into the iPad. And that's important because Beatmaker 3 understands MIDI clock. And so when I press play on the Erica Synths Black Sequencer, it not only starts the Poly-Ind Play, but it also starts the sequencer inside of Beatmaker 3. Now, why is this important? Well, the Dub Delay is a tempo-based effect, and if I can keep Beatmaker 3 running at the same tempo as the rest of the items in the project, then the delay is going to sync to tempo in the project. All right, let's take a listen to what this actually sounds like. I forgot to go over the actual audio routing of the setup, and I think that's kind of important as well. So I'm taking the main output of the Poly-Ind Play via 3.5 millimeter stereo cable, and I'm running that over to the 3.5 millimeter input on the Blue Box, okay? But the Eurorack is a little bit different than that. I'm using a module on the left here from Erica Synths, which is just called Link, and it converts the small 3.5 millimeter mini jack of Eurorack into a standard, cable size. It also attenuates the level down from the really hot Eurorack signal level down to a line level signal, which is a lot more easy for, other gear to work with. So I'm taking the 1/4 inch outputs from that Link module, and I'm running that directly into the audio interface that is connected to the iPad. The output cables of that audio interface are running, you guessed it, directly into the Blue Box, and that's how we're getting audio signal to the Blue Box. So the Eurorack is going through the audio interface into the iPad through Beatmaker 3 and being processed with Dub Delay, and then out through the audio interface just like it was any other effects processor and routed into our final mixer. I hope that makes sense. Let's check out what it sounds like. If you've been enjoying my content, I'd like to encourage you to help support the channel by clicking that little like button under this video right here. It helps feed the YouTube algorithms so that they'll share my content with more people who might enjoy this type of synthy content. Thanks for the support, friends. While working with the Dub Delay app, I found a few things that I would really love if were implemented here. The first one of them is snapback on the XY pads. And what do I mean by that? I would love to have, a setting on the XY pads and be able to then, move a knob, but then when I let go of my finger, have this snap back to its original position. So like if I have the drive setting here on 30 and I roll that up to like a really, heavy saturation and it's feeding back into itself and we're building up and we're building up and then I drop it, it would be great if I could, maybe have an extra button at the bottom of these that said snap back. And when you would press that button, it would do exactly what I said. Remember that original position so that wherever I move, the XY to, when I let go, it would snap back to that original position. I figure we could implement something like that by just leaving it blank. And then when I set to position to where I want it, I would, tap that snap back and activate it so that this would sort of lock. And then whenever I move it and let go, that it would snap back to that original position. The other thing is that when I assign, something to a knob here, let's say I want to assign the LFO speed to a knob, okay? And let me go ahead and actually get rid of the Y setting on this by clearing it out. And now we just have this X setting on the pad here where I'm controlling the speed. You can see that this has got by default the full range of the knob here when I move on the XY pad from 0 all the way to 100. It would be really nice if we could set somehow a beginning and an end so that even though I'm still giving full range of movement on the XY pad, it might not necessarily be moving the knob in its full entirety. Like, it'd be nice maybe if I could set that range to a more specific value. This could be really handy with assigning something to a filter, for instance. Let's change this. Let's go X and put this on filter 1. Let's put that on filter 1 cutoff, right? Maybe I just want to move this knob a little bit, but it's really, kind of difficult when you start doing this with your finger, and it's a lot easier to be able to, get that full range of movement in the XY pad. If we could somehow set like a start number at, whatever number we choose, and then an end destination number so that we could move this all the way, but not have the knob move from 0 to 100. I hope that makes sense. Just some way to, set the values that we want the knob to move in our full, range here. Maybe that could be set somehow in the menu when we're assigning, like another page could pop up maybe after I click the destination to set the minimum and the maximum value of that knob movement. That could be really handy. The last thing is that often when I was using the delay, even with the wet turned up all of the way here at the end, I still kind of felt sometimes like I wanted to hear more volume of the delay coming through in the end. And I often found myself putting a compressor after the dub delay on whatever effects send and return that I was, using it on so that I could beef up and kind of glue the delay a little bit more into the source material. So maybe something like a compressor on the final output to help glue the sound together could be an awesome, welcome addition. Sort of on that same concept here, I did also find that it is a little bit easy for this particular delay to get a little bit out of control with like the overdrive and the oversaturation. Like, for instance, I can't ever get this knob really about over 60% or whatnot, and all that space at the end is kind of just, wasted, movement of the knob per se. I don't know if I'm saying that very well. But I felt like at the end of the day that maybe it could be like a little bit less easy to drive into like a distortion mode. So maybe like a built-in filter could help in that respect somewhere along the gain staging process. All right. I'm going to explain the setup here, and then I'm going to explain how I'm using it today. First up, we have the 1010 Music Black Box Sampler and Groove Box. Then I've got a small Eurorack system here in the Nano Modules Kaisha case. Over here on the right, I've got the 1010 Music Blue Box recorder and mixer. And in the middle, we have an iPad. I've programmed out a beat in the black box, and I'm also using the black box to send a MIDI out into the Poly-End Poly2 module, which is converting our MIDI signal into a CV signal, allowing me to trigger a really basic dub techno chord stab out of the Eurorack system. Now, how am I getting the Dub Techno chord stab into the iPad? It's courtesy of this module over here on the far right, and that's the Bifaco AC/DC, which is actually an audio interface module. It's the same as any other audio interface, except that it's in Eurorack format, and it allows me to send 4 channels of audio or control voltage into the iPad and 4 channels of audio or control voltage out of the iPad back into the module. So I'm routing the audio from the Eurorack into this AC/DC module, which is connected to the iPad via the USB connector from Apple. You really need to have the Apple brand adapter for this. I'm hosting the Asrodot dub delay inside of AUM or AUM inside of the iPad. This is just so I can feed my audio signals, in and out of the audio interface. And I'm taking an output from the black box directly over into input 1 on the blue box. And I'm taking the outputs 1 and 2 from the audio interface that's connected to the iPad and sending that to the inputs number 2 on the blue box. So again, it's very simple setup. The audio running through the audio interface into the iPad, through the dub delay, and then back out to the audio interface, same as it would be for any other audio interface setup. And the blue box on the right is doing the mixing and the recording. I've zoomed in a little bit now so I can show you exactly what I'm doing inside of the Dub Delay app. I've assigned some of my favorite knobs to the XY pads down at the bottom so I can get really performative with this little jam. On the right, I've got the output wheel assigned, just the dry, wet knob, so I can control how much of this effect is, coming out. In the middle here, I've got this Y control assigned to the drive amount, which is basically the amount of times that it's sort of feeding back into itself. The more I turn this drive up, the more it just sort of gives it that overdrive and really starting to feed back on itself vibe. And then over here on the left XY pad, I've got this assigned to basically the time nudge knob, so I can shift the time a little bit back and forth. Now, I really want to stress that how dub delay for me is like a performative effect. So I'm going to be working this example for a few minutes so you can get a really good idea of what we can do and how we can kind of shape the delay using just these simple controls.